The Northman might be the most accessible film that Robert Eggers is going to make so far in his young career. His previous two films, The Witch and The Lighthouse, were highly regarded by genre fans, but they didn't really hit off with mainstream audiences. Through a combination of a sort of simple plot of revenge alongside the mysticism and brutal action, you might have a hit here with mainstream audiences from Robert Eggers. The Northman stars, obviously, Alexander Skarsgard as Amleth. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy as Olga. It stars Ethan Hawke as King Arvindil, Nicole Kidman as Amleth's mother, the Queen, Claes Bang as the King's brother, Fjolnir, and Bjork as the Cirrus, and it also features Willem Dafoe. The movie follows the plot of Amleth's life from his adolescence up into adulthood, after his father is murdered by his brother, and then his brother takes over his kingdom and takes his queen. So it's a just sheer story of revenge and vengeance that combines other themes, but those other themes sort of get lost in the shuffle when you look at the film overall. That doesn't take away too much from the film, though, because the action is utterly brutal. The historical sort of accuracy, as much as you can get to an accurate portrayal of this time period. And, of course, the sort of Viking mysticism, the magic, the witch, the Cirrus, whatever you want to call it, of the time period. It does combine those sort of two ideas of realism and mysticism, where you have this mystical society, but you also have this brutal, like absolutely brutal depiction of humanity here, where there's children being murdered and animals being sacrificed and people getting brutally savaged by swords and spears and arrows. It does not skimp out on the violence at all. There are some hugely violent acts, some hugely violent scenes here. The action is really well directed. It feels like Braveheart sort of on steroids, where you have this brutal hulking man that doesn't actually look that big, but when he is in motion and in his sort of bear/wolf rage that you get out of Alexander Skarsgård in this film, it really feels gigantic. The rest of the characters are highlighted by Claes Bang's performance as Fjolnir. At a certain point, it almost makes me want to root for the villain of the film, because his performance is so good and his performance is so compelling. It is a compelling performance where you see all the nuances on his face as his life goes, basically from what he kind of wants living, and then he gets taken out of that sort of life by Amleth. Outside of that, Anya Taylor-Joy is really good as Olga. Her sort of mystical performance combined with the more subdued slave performance that she gives, because Amleth does go out and hide as a slave to get closer to Fjolnir. He meets Olga on the ship to Iceland, where they are both going. It's a great performance. Nicole Kidman's performance is also fantastic here, where she's very sort of under the surface, and there's something there that, without delving into spoilers, you have to watch the movie to see, because once it comes out, it's like, oh my god, her whole performance changes. So you have to get to that point. Once you get to that point in the story, the whole thing flips and it becomes this insane Shakespearean almost look at life and humanity. Throughout, there's this sort of sheen of like, what is real? Is it real? Is something happening? There's one scene in particular where Amleth gets a sword that is sort of this mystical, almost sting, like in Lord of the Rings or something like that, or Aragorn's blade, where he gets the sword and this whole scene happens, and then something else happens that makes you think, wait, did that just happen? Is this real? It's a lot of stuff like that, where it feels like it cuts in between dreams almost, and that is obviously the style of Robert Eggers, where stuff isn't as it seems, and in The Northman, stuff isn't as it seems, but also a lot of it is very on the nose, to that point of revenge, vengeance. And so throughout that, a lot of the other themes get lost, where it's just this one line where you have vengeance, and when you think that Amleth might be making a turn, it goes back into it, and so you really get this whole narrative based around this one central theme that is a theme throughout human history of vengeance and revenge, because people want to get vengeance and revenge on people that have wronged them. It takes a step back, though, from that classic narrative where you think that something's going to be happening, and it slows the story down a lot in the middle part of it, where it's sort of Amleth planning and getting in motion the things that he wants to do, and you can see what's going on, but it never strays from that central tenet of revenge. The film keeps up with the unrelenting vision of Eggers, though. If you were going to go see this and you were a fan of Robert Eggers' movies, or you were a fan of his screenplays, this movie is 100% one of his movies. It does not sacrifice any of his unrelenting vision to get the point across, or to make it so that it's sort of more palatable for mainstream audiences, because there are definitely those hallmarks of his previous films here. You will not be disappointed with Robert Eggers as a director or a writer here. The other co-writer, Shion, also very good with the dialogue and everything. The script is tight. It is a 2-hour and almost 20-minute movie, but it does not feel that way, especially sitting in the theater. It is very brisk in its pacing. There's nothing that feels like it sort of doesn't need to be there. Everything happens for a reason, and it all builds to this excellent, excellent climax where you just get these two man-beasts going at each other. And I don't want to say anything else about it, because the setting of the whole thing and the build-up to it and how it gets to that point is absolutely masterful by Eggers and Skarsgård and Claes Bang's performances here. And it's just a brutal, brutal film that in anybody else's hands, this one might be a little one-dimensional and it might get lost in the shuffle. But in Robert Eggers' hands, The Northman is an utterly fantastic film that is worth watching and worth your money at the theater, or if you want to see it on digital when it comes out on digital. It releases in theaters on April 22nd, 2022. If I had to give it a review score, I would give it a 95 out of 100. The loss of the other themes and sort of some of the female characters in the film getting lost a bit in the shuffle to this brutal tale of Amleth's revenge in it is not something that takes it down too much, but it obviously keeps it from being a perfect film. Let me know what you think in the comments when you see the Northman. Let me know what you think of it, what you think of Robert Eggers' films, if you love his films, if you hate his films. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and do all that YouTube stuff for more movie reviews, heavy metal reviews, horror movie reviews, Blu-ray unboxings, figure unboxings, whatever else you want to see. You can see it on my channel, and thank you for watching.